let's do this. So we're gonna start by showing you just 1 second. Well, you should be able to see on your screen and let me know by either give me a thumbs up in your chat or a fist bump, or just let me know that you can see this. All right, looks like we're getting some thumbs up. A couple of fist bumps, that's good. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started. And what we're looking at here is the regional dashboard. And to help us all get on the same page with the regional dashboard, the thinking was that we could put in a succinct narrative at the top to help those who've been involved with the work for a while and those who are brand new to the work get on the same page quickly. So at the top there, you'll see that it articulates that there are 3 target areas for 60 by 30 for the regional dashboard's work. There's the 60 by 30, which is the educated population, which stands for the estimate of 25 to 34-year-old Texas residents with a certificate or higher degree. So residents meaning by not only the state, in particular, in this case, for your region. And you'll see that in just a couple of seconds how that's demonstrated. The second part of regional targets work, it has to do with completions. And so with completions, we're counting the number of certificates, associates, bachelor's and master's degrees in your area, okay? The third area of regional targets work has to do with direct high school to higher education enrollment. And you'll see that information displayed not only in this first view of the dashboard, but for each of the targets, there's a particular view that dives deeper into the data and lets you get more interactive with it, okay? So with that being said, what you're gonna learn here is akin to, like, let's say you have your favorite restaurant and you go there because it has good food, good service, or whatnot. But for those of you who have been particular fans for a restaurant, there's always a secret menu. And so what you're gonna learn here are some of the secrets that go beyond just what's at the surface that you see in this dashboard. So things that you're gonna get trained on include like drop-down lists, tooltips, which are rectangles that pop up with additional information so the view isn't cluttered, but help you get a better understanding of what's being counted and what's the source for that data. The other thing that you're going to get is other tools to read tables faster, something we call highlight tables that is built into the dashboard. And then also some other things that you're going to be able to see, like sort, keep, how to download this data, how to put it in a PowerPoint. So you're going to get a lot of cool features that on the surface, someone not going through this training would take a little bit more work. So we want to make sure that you're ready to not only use this dashboard, but also share it with other colleagues in your department and in your institution, okay? So at this point, are there any questions before I go any further? No? Okay. Well, what we're going to start with is right here on this view where we're currently looking is the overview. And I'm going to focus on a couple of things. As I mentioned before, here's the succinct statement, and you'll see this on every view. So it'll let you know what data you can expect to see and give you a little bit more information on how we acquire that data. And the layout is that we want this to be a quick view into the data itself. So one of the things that we have here is how you get started is you select a region. Okay, in this case, we set it up for West Texas, but this becomes a drop-down list. And some of you may have seen this already, but every time you change the region in any of these views, it's remembered across the entire dashboard, okay? So in this section, we're gonna start off with educated population. And with educated population, what you're going to see at the top of every view are these rectangles here that I'm hovering over with my mouse. These are called bands, which you can take to mean big authoritative numbers. So these are numbers that we want to have pop out in the viewer's mind. So that's why we brought them up. And what you're looking at the top row is the current data. So for example, for educated population, the current data runs through 2018. Then the next row is for the 2030 target. So for educated population, here you have what's the current data, 45.3% for the Gulf Coast, and their target for 2030 is 65.1. One of the nice things that you get to do here is you get to hover. And this is the tooltip, what I was alluding to. Once you place your mouse on any of these charts or these tables, you're going to get some more information here. So here we regionalize the information and say that these are the Gulf Coast residents, 25 to 34-year-olds with a bachelor's or higher education degree. And you'll see that for every region. So when we switch to West Texas, it's going to show that it's the West Texas residents. Okay. Oh, and if you don't have it, Elizabeth, would you mind popping in the URL for the dashboard so folks can have it and they can play along as I'm showing them some of these different features?
Sure thing, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I will pop that in right now. And the other thing is that we wanted to encourage people to set yourself up so that you can see the dashboard and the Zoom meeting at the same time. So if you have two screens, obviously you can do that by setting one up on each screen. Otherwise, we sort of suggest like splitting your screen view side by side so you can see what's happening as he's walking through it to better serve you.
And when you do have the dashboard up on your screen, can you just give me a thumbs up or a fist bump, or just let me know in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and tell me you have it. I want to make sure that you're able to play along with some of the features I'm going to show you.
And I did just drop the link in the chat, so let me know if anyone has any problems.
And I can also show you how to get there without the link, just in case you have any issues. So you're going to go to texashighereddata.org. So that's TXHIGHEREDDATA.org. And then you'll go to overview. And then in the middle, at the very bottom of the middle, you'll see regional dashboards. Click on regional dashboards. And we're looking at the 60 by 30 regional dashboards. And right now we're on 60 by 30 regional targets overview. Okay. So has everyone had a chance to go ahead and access the dashboards? Yeah, Mac is a little bit different. I built the dashboard on a PC, but when I access it on a Mac, it is a little bit different. Okay, looks like people have it. So if you're having any problems with it, please message Elizabeth in the chat, and I can go ahead and pause and we can try and work through it together, okay? So what I'm going to show you here are a couple of ways to work through this dashboard. So this particular view here that I'm showing you shows you all three different target areas for the regional work. But we're only going to concentrate on educated populations for this first activity here. So as you saw, there's a tooltip here that then says this is for the West Texas residents, whereas before I had it on Gulf Coast, and it showed that it was for the Gulf Coast residents. So we're regionalizing the data. Under that, the first bar graph that we're looking at is a progress bar. So we're looking at educated population progress for the West Texas region. And this line here is the 2015 estimated education population for West Texas. And it shows that it's at 29.2%. And that's where this region started in 2015. At the top of the graph, you see it's for the year 2018, the educated population was 33.2%. The target for West Texas is 55% for 2030. Now, this lets you see the data, where you started, where you currently are, and what's your target. If you want to see that in a different way, by going to the top of the bar chart, you see all three numbers just laid out in that tooltip, okay? So that's the first thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, was how to read this bar graph, because the bar graphs right below it are laid out in the same fashion. And we're not going to be coming back to this view for the rest of the activities, but some of the activities can be used in this view. It's just we're going to show you different features in the other views, okay? But just so you know how that all works. Okay, so that being said, let me just switch here real quick. Because now, since it's summer, or almost the end of summer, we're gonna give you a pop quiz. No, we're gonna have some data activities to try and help you get accustomed to the things that we're showing you. And data activity 1, let me just verify something real quick.
We actually have a poll for this one. Would you like me to launch it?
That's right, okay, that's what I was saying. Yeah, go ahead, you can launch it.
Just a second, it's stuck on the first one still.
Let me leave it here.
There we go. Everybody should now be seeing the poll launched in the Zoom window. Let me know if you're not seeing it.
So again, we're using the 60 by 30 regional targets overview, and we want you to look at your region and answer this poll. Okay, looks like it's giving me about 30 more seconds.
In the meantime, I also dropped the link to the dashboards in the chat again if anybody needs it. That will take you to a homepage that has some different links on it. Select the one that says 60 by 30 regional dashboard. That's the one we're looking at right now.
Okay, let's give about 10 more seconds and we'll close the poll. Okay, we have a question from Brandy. Why does progress show 2018 data and the bottom two show 2019 data? Okay, Brandy, so good question. So the reason the data here shows 2018 for educated population is because it's always looking backwards. So we get data at least in a 1-year lag. Because we get it from the American Community Survey, so it's federal data that we get, and then we have to apply a methodology for certificates. So that's why it shows 2018 versus the completion and direct enrollments, which show 2019 data as the latest data for current. because that completion data comes directly from the institutions who submitted annually, and it goes through our CBM process. So we're able to get that data as well as direct enrollment. We're able to get that data a little bit, we're able to get that from TA. So there's not a 1-year lag. It usually comes like in May. So we're able to get data that's more time-wise, more current than educated population. Okay, let's see, did we stop the poll? Oh, let's end the poll. All right.
So then what we're seeing is that most of the regions saw an increase, and that it looks like about 67% of people said it was moving in the direction that they expected. So we're just going to kind of ask you to keep this in mind. We're actually going to return to this in a little bit when we come back to a breakout session and talk a little bit more about the trends and what you're seeing with the data.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to stop sharing the results right now. And the way we're going to work this training is at the top here, you see regional targets overview. Then next to that, you see 60 by 30 educated population. All the way you see direct enrollment. Those are tabs for different views of the dashboard. We're going to go through each view because we're going to have an activity. And that activity, you may get some new training on features. In different views, you're going to see some of those same features, so you'll be a little bit more prepped as to the data activity. But at any rate, we want you to be comfortable with how the data is viewed in its current state and how you can shape it for different perspectives that you want to see out of there, okay? So at this point, we're gonna move over to 60 by 30 educated population into this view. And as you can see, we're still in the West Texas region. As I mentioned, this dashboard remembers what region you selected at any point throughout these views. So you'll keep that there together. What I want you to see here is that there are 3 different types of data presented. So you see the line graph here, where educated population by year. You see this highlight table where it's educated population by credential. And then the bottom highlight table is our population and population projections for West Texas. So there's a lot of data here. What I want to show you are things that are going to make you really popular at parties. So you're going to learn a lot of party tricks here. You're going to learn how to use this data to show things that may not be very apparent, okay? So one of the things here that I want to show you is you've seen this graph a little bit in the first view, but here you get more information. Whereas over there, you got just the percentages. In addition to the percentages here, you see through this tooltip, you get the hard count. So you'll get the number of certificates or higher attainment, plus you'll get the total population, and then you just divide those. Your numerator is certificates, your denominator is the total population, and that's how we get the percentage there of 35.2. And you'll also see the source where we get that data, okay? So you'll get to see that. One of the things that I want to highlight with this table here are a couple of things. So you see that it's in different gradients of blue, and the dark blue is to show which is the higher number. The lighter blue shows which is the lighter number or a smaller number. So this data, this table has a lot of data there. And there may be times where you want to see all that data, but there may be times where you don't want to see all that data because you want to see it a little bit better. So I'm going to show you how this can be more like clay, okay? So the first thing that we can do is if we come over to, let's say, educated population by credential, we can go under credential and we see these different credentials, right? Well, right next to it, you see this bar graph with an arrow pointing to the right. That helps you sort the data. So you'll see this throughout the different views. Like here, you can sort it through year, but here we're gonna sort it just by credential, okay?
So we have a question, Luis. Are the certificates a combination of high school IBCs with level 1 and 2 certificates earned in college, or only the college level 1 and 2?
You can correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth, but as far as I know, it's just the college level 1 and 2 certificates.
That's correct. It doesn't
Yeah.
include the IBCs.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Just make sure as you're changing tabs that you highlight that, since we have a few people that I think you might be going a little fast for them in some spots, so
Okay.
they aren't necessarily catching when we change views.
Ah, I see. Okay. I'll make sure to do that. Okay. So then back to the sorting. We can look at any credential here. So let's take baccalaureate. And by clicking on it once, we see that we sorted it to, we want to know what year were bachelor's degrees the highest for West Texas. And in this case, 2017 had the highest percentage of bachelor's degrees for educated population in West Texas. Okay. So that's how sorting works, and we'll see it throughout the different dashboard views. So just to reiterate, you want to place your mouse over the different degree you want to see, and then you'll just click on it, and it'll start sorting for you. So in this case, we're sorting master's degrees, okay? So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is by going into the actual text here and just clicking on it. And then you get this, I'm gonna call this a tooltip as well. So you get keep only, exclude, and then it gives you different options for sorting. So in this case, you can sort ascending, so you'll look at the year with the lowest number to the highest, and descending, so we'll look at the highest number to the lowest number, okay? So you'll get to choose that. So there are two ways to do it. You can either just put your mouse over and the sorting icon will come up, or you can actually just click on the text and then this tooltip will pop up for you, okay? All right, so that's sorting. Any questions on how to use the sorting feature?
So it does seem like, yeah, I was going to say, it does seem like some people maybe are having some problems with the site freezing. If you have that happen, just try reloading it and it seems to kick it back to working properly.
Okay. All right, we'll have to look into that, see why it might be freezing for some. Okay. Anything else in the chat?
Nope, that's it so far, although I really appreciate people commenting and helping other people out as they're encountering issues. That's really awesome.
Yeah, it shows the, collegial spirit here with the folks we work with. So that's really nice. So the other feature that I want to show you is that this table might look great, but for some people might be like, that dark blue is just not showing me what I would like to see. So what you could do is you can actually manipulate this table to work a little bit more however you want it to work. So one of the things that I showed you is if you click on the text itself, what I want to show you right now is keep only or exclude. So what we could do is we could say, well, doctoral degrees for West Texas, just in this example, and you might have a different perspective on this. Just in this example, you might say, well, let's exclude that because it's 0% right now. And then the table becomes a little bit easier to read. So now the table is not as difficult as before. The reason it was a little harder to read is because there's a lot of rows in there. So by looking at it this way, it might be easier once you download it. So I'll leave that up to you, however you want to use this feature, but I wanted to make sure that you knew that it was there for you, okay?
Hey, Louise, could you quickly cover one more time, like how, once you sort, how you reset it back to what it was?
Yep. So follow my mouse down here. And the way that you resort it is a couple of ways, but I'm going to show you one quick way. So down here, you see some icons with this arrow pointing to the left. That's your undo. So it undid that. And the other way, if you're like, I did a lot of things, I don't remember what I did, I just want it back to how it's when I started. The arrow with the line to the left of it is your reset button. If you click on that, it's going to reset back to the original view. So it's going to reset, let's say you had chosen Gulf Coast or High Plains. and you made all those changes, once you hit that reset button, it's going to change it back to West Texas. Okay, it's just what's the default view once you come into the dashboard. Okay. So any questions on the sort or the keep only or hide options or features? Okay. All right then.
We do have a question. Does excluding data in the educated population by credential dashboard change the data in the accompanying dashboard?
Oh, okay. Good question. No, it doesn't change the data in the accompanying dashboard, and it also does not change the data in this table itself. So, for example, if you see, let's keep an eye on certificate. Okay, it's at 7% right now. Let's say I take out professional degree. Certificate still stays at 7%. Okay. The big caveat here is that later on we will see in completions, if you do take out certain credentials or population groups, the data totals do change, but just for that view. You're not changing it for everything else.
Okay, then we have another question. In the line graph, what does the 35.2% mean? What is it? What is it 32.5% of?
Sure. So the 35.2% means that 35.2% of 25 to 34-year-olds in West Texas had a certificate or higher attainment degree. So if you click on the tooltip, it'll show you not only the percentage, but also which year we're talking about, which region, and then the hard numbers. So if you just want to verify, you can just have 34,000 plus divided by 99,000, and you'll come up with that 35.2%. And same thing for all the other numbers. Okay, any other questions?
That's all we have in the chat so far.
Okay, great. We'll keep them coming along if people have more questions. If not, we will move on to data activity number 2. Okay. Let me put this in full view so people can see it. All right. So is everyone able to see data activity number 2? Okay, great. All right, so just for everyone's convenience, I'm going to read it. On the 60 by 30 educated population view, which we were just on, what are the top 3 credentials for your region in the years 2017 and 2018? How would you summarize the educated population by credentials in your region based on this data?
So we're going to ask you just to pop answers in the chat in terms of these questions, which you just scrolled away and we can't see now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to try and, if anyone wants me to get them started, let me know. I can give you some friendly hints.
I have an idea for how you can get them started.
Okay.
If
Go
this
ahead.
works.
Okay.
Okay, my idea didn't work.
Oh.
All right, we're starting to get some answers.
Oh, great. All right. And can you name your region as well when you say what are the top degrees?
So it looks like as we're seeing it by region, the order is switching up.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I would agree with that.
So like, for example, Metroplex for 2017 and 18, their top degree was the baccalaureate as, let's see, I'm not sure what region that is. Whereas Northwest also said bachelor's and then certificates was their second. Southwest had, or excuse me, Southeast had bachelor's first again, and then master's, and then their associate.
Okay.
Upper Rio Grande saw baccalaureate and associate as their top two.
Great. And for those of you still looking to share or who have shared, if you could let us know part 2 of the question, which is how would you summarize educated population by credential in your region based on this data? So on that sort that you just did, how would you summarize your educated population by credential?
All right, so Christine, you just gave us a great response. In the Metroplex, we have 25% with baccalaureates, and the other post-secondary are equally distributed above and beyond at approximately 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we do have a question. If someone has an associate and a bachelor's degree, then they only count in the highest degree, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Only the highest degree.
High Plains region needs more post-bac completers. Would anyone like to unmute themselves and share how they would summarize their educated population by credential?
Maybe they're a little shy.
Yeah, we don't have any immediate takers, do we?
Okay. Well, if you want to take up us on that offer,
Christine is going to, it looks like. She just unmuted herself.
Okay, go ahead.
So I had put it in the chat, but I miswrote part of it. Basically, out of our 47%, 25% are at the baccalaureate level, and then we have 10% above and 11% below. And I know in our region, at least, we're holding steady with our enrollments at community colleges and universities, but we're actually seeing an increase in students in the face of all this economic and educational uncertainty, actually staying in universities and pursuing graduate degrees. So we're anticipating that'll actually go up.
Okay, awesome. And we welcome, just like Christine, we welcome any longtime listeners, first-time callers to go ahead and chime in on the show. Okay, great. Well, it looks like people really have the hang of this. So I want to get you into the next data activity, if that's okay, unless we have any other questions in the chat, Elizabeth, that you see?
Nope, we just have continued comments rolling in. So we did have one question about whether the dashboards do a comparison by region.
Not automatically. We don't have that. That is something that we are pursuing maybe in the next version, but at this point it would be more manual, switching the different regions so you can make that comparison on your own.
Well, and keep in mind that part of the dashboards is about helping us understand how we're doing within our regions. Mm-hmm. And so we really want to make sure that people are focused on that piece first. And then we do still do, you know, state comparisons based on the data available through accountability.
Right.
Can you drill down in each region to look at institution data?
Oh, I'm glad you're thinking that way. Let's put a short pin on that because we will be going into the institutional data for completions a little later in this training. Okay. All right. So let's go on to data activity number 3. And we're still going to stay in that 60 by 30 educated population view. This time, we're going to work with the bottom table. So on that 60 by 30 educated population view, we're looking at 2018 population and 2020 projection view. I want you to sort the view for the 18 to 24 age group in descending order. And once you have it sorted in descending order, the second part is the question: is the 2020 projection an increase or decrease from 2018? Let's just keep it in that 18 to 24 age group for now. Sorry, it's a little type one that we'll fix that, because you'll have access to these data activities. You'll have access to this. This is also done in Tableau, by the way. It's just a different feature Tableau. You'll have access to this after the training.
So just pop in the chat for us whether you saw an increase or a decrease.
Mm-hmm. West Texas, is it possible to add percentage by demographic next to the total? For example, African American. So Brandy, I'll answer that question that yes, it is possible, but there's also something else that we might be able to do to help out with that, in whether you want to see the hard count or the percentage. The reason is that there's so much data packed into that table already. Packing in more numbers, I think there's an alternative way to have that there for you. And let me just go to that dashboard for a second, or do you want me to stick on this question, Elizabeth?
I think it's okay to go ahead and go to the dashboard, and people can continue to indicate whether they saw an increase or decrease.
Mm-hmm. So Brandy, and for everyone else, one of the ways that we do that by showing the percentage, I know that you may have seen this, but in the tooltip, it'll give you the percentage, and I think you want that right next to where it says 7,204. In the next view, you'll see some of the ways that we did that, and that may be helpful for an updated version of this. Okay. Any other questions on the dashboard in this particular view? Oh, some new messages. Okay, good. Anything strike out to you, Elizabeth, in the chat about this last question? I'm sorry, the response is not the question.
So there seems to be a lot of conversation about how we're seeing increases. So for example, Northwest saw an increase in all, Central Texas saw an increase in all, Upper Rio Grande saw an increase in African American, white, and other group students, but a decrease for their Hispanic students. So we're seeing sort of, you know, there are nuances within each region, as well as you know, there's some similarities across regions in terms of increasing categories. So Southeast saw an increase for Hispanic and other. So yeah, that's sort of the synopsis. And it looks like everybody's getting the hang of how to use the dashboard and focusing on their region, which is awesome.
Good. Well, I think we're doing pretty well on time. If someone from our participants wants to chime in, and go ahead and unmute yourself and just say a couple of maybe insights that you've seen so far. I know we're barely getting started. All right. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next view, unless I missed anything. Did I miss anyone wanting to chime in? No. Okay.
I didn't see anybody that looked like they unmuted themselves, so.
All right. Okay, so now we're going to move over into completions by I think by credential. Sorry, the next. Oh, sorry. This is one of the tricky things about doing the Zoom. So let me put it back in full screen. All right. So here's completion by demographics. And again, at the top, you'll see that narrative that brings you out to there. Right next to the West Texas map, to the right of that, you're going to see this band, again, big authoritative numbers. And we're looking at the data for 2019. And this is completion by institution type. So here, where I'm hovering over, total completions, you see it's 6,807. And the tooltip will give you a definition what we mean by that. So here you can see that it's counting or rolling up all certificates, associated degrees, bachelor's degrees, and master's degrees awarded by West Texas institutions, okay? And then each region, because you have different types of institutions in your region, it's only going to show what's relevant to your region. In this case, West Texas has public 2-year and public university institutions. So that's why you see that data, and it rolls up into this 6,807 total completions, okay? So the first graph here, completions by race, ethnicity in West Texas, I think will give you a little bit about what Brandy was asking, like, hey, we have the number there, but can we also see the percentage? So one of the things that we implemented in here is where you see percent. This is actually a drop-down list. So if you click on it, you can see this data in one of two ways. You can see it as either a percent, which is what you see right now, or you can see it as a value. By clicking on value, now you see the hard count, okay? Or if you want to go back to percent, it'll show you the percent by race or ethnicity in that year for the entire region, okay? And again, if we go into the tooltip, let me show something that might show on the entire screen. So the year 2014, we look at the green part of the bar chart. It shows that it's for Hispanics in West Texas, total number of completions. Then you see again the percent matches. And we also define what we mean by others. So you'll see this across the dashboard. What do we mean by others? So that will include Asian, Native American, Pacific Islander, and all other races or ethnicities reported, okay? Just so we're all on the same page with that. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I should have stuck to the script here. Sorry about that, Elizabeth. Because we do have a breakout activity. I am apologizing profusely. So just keep what we said about completion views in mind. Let's go to the discussion activity for educated population, okay? So
Okay,
at this point,
we're gonna actually do breakouts, but can you scroll back up so we can see the questions? Before we go to the breakout room, I'm gonna ask everyone to either take a picture or screenshot this, because there is not a way for me to send it into the breakout rooms. So that you can see the questions, and your point of contact from the coordinating board will be joining your group to just kind of help you think about and talk about the data. So remember, I said we would return to whether your educated population was trending in the direction you expected. That's the first thing that y'all are going to talk about. And then we're going to ask you to identify one key factor that explains your region's trend, and identify one key factor that is unique to your region that you anticipate impacting your ability to meet the 2020 and 2030 targets. If you have time, I will encourage you to think about additional factors, but first we want you just to identify one for each region. And it would be great if you could choose someone in your group that would be willing to just type up your key points in the chat to share with everyone. And we will invite a few people to speak, so to potentially talk as well. So with that, we are going to launch the breakout rooms unless anyone has any questions. All right, so let's I'm going to open all the rooms and hopefully everybody goes to their assigned one. If not, I will get the people who are not assigned assigned. Oh, thank you, Claudette. So during the breakout time, we're going to give you about 8 to 10 minutes for discussion, and you will get a warning at 1 minute that you're going to be coming back into the larger group. All right. And it does look like I have some people who are not assigned to breakout rooms. So let me see, get you assigned to where you need to be.
Okay, I think some of us may have been caught mid-sentence trying to finish up our thoughts in the breakout rooms. So what I'd like to do is just take a few minutes if you want to put something in the chat to highlight the key takeaways from your discussion room.
Or if you just want to highlight one thing that like particularly stood out to you, that I would welcome you to do that as well.
Okay, and look, if we don't, then we'll do take 2 on the completions by demographics, unless anything's come in the chat. Oh, looks like we may have something. Okay.
I feel like we had a question right before we went to chat.
Okay, I see a question here from Morgan. How does this all funnel up to the goals of 60 by 30? And he puts in the 60by30.com site on there. These Tableau dashboards are much more detailed. So that is a good question, Morgan. What we were thinking with this dashboard is that it was going to be a resource for the convenings and the other meetings that or discussions you're having with your region. But what makes it different from the 60 by 30 site, or sorry, the question was, how does it funnel up to that? Fine. Is we're looking at just those 3 target areas. And what we're hoping is that because we know that these goals are different for each region, that by having the goals regionalized or these areas regionalized, that it's going to reflect in the overall data once we roll it up to the state level. So not giving a one-size-fits-all for the entire state, but by region saying, well, what's working in Metroplex? What's working in West Texas? What does Gulf Coast need to do that's different from like South Texas? So that's how this stands out a little bit from 60 by 30 site, but then it rolls up to the overall state goals. Okay, looks like we do have some highlights here coming in from different regions.
Yeah, so for example, West Texas talked about how their trend has remained fairly flat, and they think that has a lot to do with what's been happening in terms of the oil field in their areas. Metroplex is concerned about how the upcoming impact of COVID-19 is going to affect all of us, right, including their region, in terms of completions. There's been also, you know, Metroplex went on to talk about, you know, how they have strategies for high school to higher ed to increase in early college, high school, that they think will contribute. So, and again, reiterating the challenge of the pandemic on higher ed and how that's going to cause us to restart efforts for things that we have been doing. I know in Central Texas, we also talked about one of the challenges for our area is that the major universities in the area are pretty much maxed out in terms of the size for the student population they can contribute to. So that creates this issue of, well, you have to then think about how much room is there to expand in the community college space. So that was one of the challenges identified there as well.
Yeah, these are all great comments to make. So I think I'm gonna keep going just because of time. So we're gonna go back to my completion view that I just leapfrogged a little too much in front before, but we're going to go back and show you a couple other neat things to do in there. So let me get out of this window just for a minute. All right. So now back to our completions. And as I walk you through the layout of the land, remember here you can switch by percent or value to look at the data in different ways. A couple of things that I want to highlight here before we go ahead and let you loose on another data activity has to do with the legends here. So these legends, oh, sorry about that. Let me get back there again. Okay. So as I was saying, these legends here have a function besides being able to categorize the different race or ethnicities in here. You can actually use these in an interactive way. So by example, let's say African American here. If we highlight on it, what it's going to do is going to allow us to keep or exclude, and then it will show just information for African American completions in the West Texas region or in the region that you have chosen. Okay. Another way, doesn't seem to be doing it. Okay. Let's get out of full screen for a minute. Is so if we wanted to keep only, now it shows us the data. And here's what I meant, that this will change the percentage. Earlier I said if you do exclude or keep only a certain category, you see 100%. It's because it's only reporting that 100% of these numbers here are related to African American. And if we see the value stays the same, it's just the percentage changes, okay? So now if you want to put it back to the way that it was, you can certainly go down here to the arrow to do undo. Or another way, if you prefer to use your keyboard, if you're on a PC, the way that you do it is you first hit Control, then Z, and it takes it back. If you're on a Mac, you do Command Z, and that's how you get it back. So you have three different ways of doing it, depending on what you're most comfortable with. The other way to do it is Control R, so you can refresh the page, or Command R if you're on a Mac to refresh the page. Okay, so you can use a keystroke, or you can come down here to the bottom right and use one of these arrows.
So
Okay.
Luis, we have a request that maybe we could mix up what regions we're looking at. So
Sure.
for example, there was a request that could we see some data for Gulf Coast?
Sure, let's do it. Okay, so here's the Gulf Coast region data. Okay, so there's the legend. You already know about the undo. If this were highlighted here, you could redo it, be like, no, I want to go back to that. So you can redo it, or you can reset it. You also have full screen here, which is what I'm using. And I'm going to show you something else that you can do that's going to make you a real crowd pleaser at your next data party, okay? So if you get out of full screen mode, what you have are some more icons. So you have the share, you have the full screen, as I mentioned, but you also have this download icon. So by clicking on the download, you're going to get this data in three methods. One is by image. So that's going to come in like a JPEG, a PNG, or some other kind of file that you can use. A PDF is going to come in that format, so you can pop it into your Adobe system that you have, or a PowerPoint. PowerPoint is going to take this view and just put it into a slide for you, so you don't have to recreate any of the graphs or any of the data. You can just have it there for you, okay? So any questions on any of these features so far?
So I'm going to go ahead and ask the question that I'm sure at least one person is wondering. Why can't you download the data?
Oh, like the raw data? Okay.
Yeah.
The reason you can't download the raw data, and you'll see it here, data or Tableau workbook, is because as the coordinating board, we have data here for independent colleges and universities in Texas, so private institutions, and we can't show you their raw data. So we can show you in the aggregate, so we can show you the total numbers rolled up, but we can't show you by individual levels. And so that's why you won't be able to download the data just yet. We're working on ways to get around this, and we're hopeful that we can get something resolved soon.
We also have a question about why this isn't available by institution.
Oh, we will be getting to that. We're just starting at the regional level because the data was primarily, or the dashboard was set up for regions to have conversations around their around their regions as a whole when it comes to the three target areas. So that's why we're starting with regions, but this data will be available for institutions, and you'll see that in just a few minutes, okay?
have
So complete,
another question. Sorry to interrupt
no,
you.
go ahead.
Do you know, do we have a preferred browser for the dashboard, or does it seem to work equally well across?
We've tested it and it works well across with like Chrome, with Safari, with Edge, and even the good old Internet Explorer. Okay. Down here, completions by gender. You also have your choice of seeing it by the value or by the percent. Okay. Are there any questions before I move on to the data activity? No? Okay. And feel free to chime in if there are any questions. I'll be happy to stop.
We actually have a poll for this one.
Oh, okay, good. Let's do the poll.
So I've launched the poll. We're going to give everybody about a minute and a half, maybe a little longer, to answer.
And there is an extra credit in here, okay? The extra credit is if you want to download this view and email it to me. So I'm going to put in my email and then I will ask you the question. Okay, so in the chat is my email address. And so for extra credit, I want you to download the dashboard in PowerPoint and email me the view of completions by race and ethnicity for your region. And here's the email address you can send it to. It's in the chat. And I'll also go ahead and put it on screen here for everyone to see. And we'll just take a couple of minutes. Okay, any questions, any comments coming in through the chat? Anything that I can elaborate on? I'd be happy to. Okay. Are you seeing anything coming in through the chat that I might be missing, Elizabeth?
No, sir.
All right. Okay, then in that case, let's see what the people said. All right. So which year had the highest completion for African Americans? We see that half of you said it was in 2019. Which year had the highest completion for Hispanic students in your region? 2019, almost 86% of you said that. And for white students, it was 2015. And for other students or other races, it was in 2018. Okay, well, great, great. So let's stop sharing the results. And let's move on to completions by credentials. Here you see that the layout of this view is very similar to the other dashboard that we just came from, completion by demographics. And in this particular view, we're looking at two graphs. The top graph is by credential type. So we're looking at certificate, associate, bachelor's, and master's. And again, just to reiterate a couple of highlight features here, or a couple of features to highlight here, is that you can do, you can see the data either by percent or by value here. And then that these legends here are also interactive. So you can go ahead and keep them or exclude them. You can also sort by just coming up by the hard counts, and you'll see the sort icon coming up here. The second graph, or at the bottom, is the undergraduate completion among economically disadvantaged students in Gulf Coast. And just to keep with the request, I'm going to change this to High Plains. Okay, so we'll try to get every region in there to give you a good spice of the different regions, so you can get to see the different data points on there. And for this, I believe this is a POC activity that we're going to do in the breakout rooms. That's correct, right, Elizabeth, on that?
Actually, why don't we skip this one and continue through, and I'm going to see if I can get the breakout rooms straightened out so that people actually go to the correct breakout room.
Okay, so that sounds good. I think that this is a good point to take a quick 2-minute break, if that's okay with everyone, because we're going to transition away from just regional completion data. We're going to go into institutional completion data. Okay, so unless there are any strong objections, we'll take a 2-minute break for you to freshen up, get some water, do what you need to do. Is that okay? Thumbs up or fist bumps? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and take a 2-minute break. We'll come back at 1:27. Okay.
I'm going to open the breakout rooms for a minute to see who's not pre-assigned. Please don't feel the need to join one.
Okay. And I'm going to give the participants a 45-second time check. So we're going to start up again in 45 seconds. Okay, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started again. So at this point, I think we're going to go and move into the institutional completions. And if we have time, we'll come back and do the data activity assigned for this particular view. Okay. So what I want you to do at this point is we're going to exit this view, and just to get you used to how to get to the dashboards, if you're on txhighereddata.org, I want you to go to Overview, and then towards the middle, at the very bottom of the middle, is Regional Dashboards. Click on that link. And this time, we're going to go to Institutional Completion Dashboards. And once you're there, go ahead and just put in a fist bump or a thumbs up or a big heart in your chat. Okay. All right.
Luis, just so you know, we have a few people that were in the chat rooms that are coming back. So
Okay.
the breakout room. So why don't you give them like a minute?
Okay, sounds good. Can I repeat? Of course, yes. So what you're going to do is, if you're on txhighereddata.org, you're going to go to Overview, and then under Data Portals, under Data Portals, all the way at the bottom, you're going to see Regional Dashboards. Click on that link, and this time we're going to go to Institutional Completions Dashboards. Okay, and I'm just going to put it in full screen view. And Elizabeth, you'll let me know when it's a good time to go ahead and
We're almost there, like 10 more seconds.
okay.
It doesn't let me just immediately close them.
Oh,
I was
okay.
put into a room by myself as Sherry. Hi.
Sherry.
So I came out.
Well, I hope you had a good conversation.
Okay, everybody should be rejoining us. Sorry, I was reactivating the breakout rooms just so that I could get people aligned to their correct breakout room.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be good to go now.
Okay. Does anyone need me to show them how to get to this view again? If you do, just go ahead and raise your hand. I'll be happy to show you one more time. Okay. Yes, please. Okay. So the way I got here, or any of these dashboards, it's txhighereddata.org up here. You go to Overview, and then under Data Portals, all the way at the bottom are Regional Dashboards. Click on that link, and we're going to go to Institutional Completion Dashboards. And just like a magician, I make it appear and disappear. Okay. All right. See anything else in the chat? Okay. You put in the URL. Great. Okay. So now we're going to be able to answer some of those questions that we had previously. Can we see this by institutions? And the answer is resoundingly yes. You'll notice that this view looks very similar to the regional targets overview. At the top here, you can select a region, and we've selected Central Texas, that's the default, but you can also select an institution. So here we have Austin Community College selected. And what we're looking at is the institutional completion and 2030 target for Austin Community College. So in this bar chart, we see that Austin Community College in 2015 had 2,950 completions. And in 2019, it had over 5,000. The target for this institution is over 8,000 by 2030. So if you go to the institution drop-down list, you'll see that there are very few institutions here. And the reason there are only a few institutions is because we wanted to make it easier for folks to find the institution according to their region. So this drop-down list only has the institutions, both public and private, that are within the Central Texas region. You're not going to be able to find in this particular drop-down list, let's say Trinity, or let's say University of Houston. You're not going to find it in there because it's tied to their particular region. Okay. So if we did want to change it, let's go to Metroplex here. And we still see that it's saying Austin Community College, but the data is blank. Well, if we do the drop-down list, there's an Austin College, kind of close, but then you see all the other institutions are just based in the Metroplex region, okay? So let's do Navarro College here, okay? So the other thing that I want to point out here is the bottom graph. The bottom graph, what it's showing you are a couple of key takeaways. One, the line graph is showing you the hard counts for each year. So from 2014 to 2019, the total number of completions. The bar chart right below that line graph is showing you the annual growth rate. So for example, 2015 for Navarro College, we see the difference between 2014 and 2015 and 2016 from 2015, okay? So you can use this for your different institutions so you can see the growth rate. And I'm just going to change it to Austin Community Colleges so we can get back at that first view that I had it on. You can see the growth rate for each year. Okay. And the reason we wanted to put that in there is so then each institution can see what has been the general trend in growth on completions. In relation to your targets, in relation to the actual numbers that you have from 2014 to 2019. As for this one, we do have a data activity.
You're mumbled, we can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. There is a data activity. And so let me bring that up here on the screen. And go to activity number 7. And here it is. All right. So first we want you to use that institutional completion and targets overview, sorry. We want you to locate your institution's data. So remember, you have to choose the region, and then you have to choose the institution. So first the region in the drop-down list. The next drop-down list, choose your institution or an institution. And then the question is the growth rate trending up or down for 2018 to 2019? And the fourth part is, do you expect the growth rate trend to continue? And so once you do that, you can pop in your responses or insights into the chat, or if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and just share a few words, you're welcome to do that as well.
It looks like we are still having some people struggling with the dashboard freezing up, so we definitely want to investigate what's going on with that. Okay, so we have a question. How was the target arrived at? Is it at a percentage of the institution's total enrollments?
Okay, so these targets were actually submitted by the institutions in August of 2018. So we sent out a survey to every institution, and we asked you to give us your best estimates for 2020, 2025, and 2030. And so what you're seeing here is 2030. So these are submitted in by the different institutions. So the different methodologies varied. Some went a little scientific and said, we're going to look at a regression trend and we're going to add in a different buffer. Other people said, well, we've been going up by this trend, so we think we'll go up that way too.
So, and we're getting a number of comments. So High Plains is up, but there's concerns about how COVID is going to impact that moving forward, since as we know, this data doesn't reflect COVID yet. The growth rate is also up in West Texas. Central Texas is also seeing a trend up. Cisco is up. UTD was up through 2018, but then recently had a decrease. So we're seeing sort of, there's quite a few ups. There's definitely some trending down with the hope that like we see that change in the future. UTEP is up. And then, so also some comments about how we've seen some increase for a while, but now it's like increasingly incrementally in more recent years. So the good news is we're seeing a lot of positive that at least prior to COVID-19, that the rates were moving in the right direction.
And I do have to give some shout outs too. I turned off my email in my computer just to make sure I wasn't distracted, but I just checked it on my phone. I want to give shout outs to folks who did send in a PowerPoint download of their completions view. So thank you so much for doing that. I'll respond to you after this webinar. I'm glad you're able to do that.
So shall we move on to the next completions dashboard you want to show us?
Yeah, let's move on. Okay. Go back here. Just going to go into full screen. Okay, so here we're looking at completion credentials by institution, and similar setup as the other dashboards. You select a region. In this case, you can select an institution, and what you'll see below is completion credentials by that institution. So just the credentials that apply to that institution. And then in the bottom graph, you'll see the undergraduate completions among economically disadvantaged students for that institution. One of the things that I will highlight here, and we would like some feedback, that's the reason why I'm highlighting it, you see different numbers here. So you see 4,017, 1,226, but at the top, what that is the sum of these numbers. So the reason we put the sum of these numbers is because we're trying to gauge if there's interest in having the sums there, so people won't have to do math, or if you're okay with the sums not being there, we're okay with them being taken off. What we want the dashboards to have is to be consumer friendly in the sense that people, unless they want to do math, don't have to do math here, because we don't want the dashboards to be stereotypical that numbers are mind-numbing. Yeah.
So I'm seeing some positives in terms of keeping the sums. People
Okay.
seem to like that feature.
Okay, good.
They did note that the sums are good. They're also noted that it can be directly spelled out like that, or it also could be a hover and discover, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay. So again, some of the things that you can do here is you can sort the data, and you can see which years had the highest total completions, and it'll show that in that format. You can also use the legend to keep or exclude. So if you want to see a certain kind of data on here, you can do that. Okay. So with this one, we do have a data activity. And let me bring that up. So this data activity will want you to use institutional completions by credential from the institutional completion and target dashboard. And the question is, which year did your institution award the highest number of total degrees?
So if you can just pop that in the chat, and if you would identify your institution, that would be great. Thank you, Robin. You read my mind. So, Luis, why don't you walk us through one more time where people look to see this completion by credential specifically for their institution?
Okay. Sure thing. Like get to the dashboard or just get to this view?
Both.
Okay. So on txhighereddata.org, you click on overview, and over here at the bottom in the middle section is regional dashboards. And if you want to see just institutional completion dashboards, this is the link you click on, institutional completions dashboards. And the view that we were using is completion by institutions. Oh, one neat trick that I forgot to mention here that the other dashboard doesn't have is this upside down triangle. You click on it and it's another way to navigate through these different views. So here you see the entire spelling, whereas the tabs cut off some of it. So I can click on completion credentials by institution.
It looks like you're having some lag now too.
Yeah, that just means we're pretty popular this time. Okay, okay, it's lagging on me as well. We need that old cartoon where a guy was behind a TV camera saying, "Sorry, folks, technical difficulties. We'll get it sorted." Let's see. So we're getting some more responses in the sense. All right, let me. All right, let's see if that works now. Okay, this is something we'll definitely have to work on because we don't want people to be frustrated with navigating through the dashboard. So with that being said, let's go to a data activity or, oh no, I was gonna take you to, yeah, let's go to a data activity. Oh, now it's working on me. Okay. So right before we go to that data activity, let me show you a couple of ways that you could use some of those features of hide, keep, exclude, or sort. So let's say, for example, you're at your institution and someone comes to you with a data request to say, all right, well, I just want to see the number of completions for Hispanics and African Americans for the year 2000, for the years 2014 to 2019. I just want to see those two categories right now. And instead of running all the numbers for it, you can go to this dashboard. And let's say you're Austin Community College, just for this example. So what I'm doing is I'm holding the control button on my keyboard, and I'm going to click on African American and on Hispanic. And so by doing that, I get this keep only or exclude. In this case, I want to keep only. So there's how I can show someone the data just for African American and Hispanic completions for my institution for this time period. And it shows them the numbers there. And what I can further do is come down and just download this data as a PowerPoint and send it over to them and say, here it is. So that took just a few minutes to get to. And once you're comfortable enough to do that, you can go ahead and just send out that PowerPoint, and it doesn't take additional coding. We're trying to make sure that there's some self-service component to the dashboards. So that's why you can do that kind of self-service analysis, okay? And again, if I want to reset it, I can either go to the undo or I can just go reset it completely, okay? In this case, I'll just reset it because it's a little bit faster taking it all there. Okay. So that being said, we do have an activity for this view. And let me take you there. And that will take us to data activity number 9.
I know some of you are having some problems with the dashboard lagging as well. So understand if you're not able to get it to pull up the data so you can look at it. We are definitely going to look into that and see if we can find out what's going on, so that we obviously want people to utilize the dashboard in a user-friendly way. So we'll look into that further.
Yes, thank you so much for your patience. And the data that we're going to be able to access is going to be in our internal portal for Tableau, and it'll show us where some of those lags might be happening. So apologies for that happening to you. We didn't expect that, but we're going to turn this into a positive. Okay, so looking at institutional completions by demographics view, which we just saw, the question is, and there's a typo on here, and we'll make sure to fix that as well, is which 2 races or ethnicities have the lowest number of completions for your institution during, and it should be 2014 to 2019.
Okay, it looks like we're getting some responses. So other and Hispanic for CTC, Cisco College, African American, and other group students. Again, Paul, it looks like we're having problems with unable to select the drop down. I know some other people were messaging me privately on the last dashboard with a similar problem. So we definitely need to look at the functionality there.
And just to get you through this activity, because I empathize with you, the thing that worked for me was doing Control R. And at times when that didn't work for me, I just closed out the browser and opened up the page again. And that seemed to work. So,
and others have indicated the refreshing helps. So. All right, since people are kind of struggling with the dashboard, do we want to move on to showing them the next piece?
Yep, let's do that. Go back to the dashboard. So now we're going to look at public completions by race and ethnicity. Let me put that in full screen. And so here you have the different filters as well. You have your region, your institution, your selected year. So think of these like SQL. So by region, by institution, by year, if that's the kind of language that you're used to, that's how the filters work here. And value percent, you've seen that on the completions view for both, for the regional completion view. It works the same way here. This table right now is showing you the value, but if you drop down, you can see this by percent. And the percent works by row. So it adds up to 100% for the institution. So for example, here you have Texas A&M System Health Science Center. So you see the percentage of African Americans, Hispanics, white, other, and all those add up to 100%. Again, the tooltip will show you what we defined as other, and it will give you the total number. So you can have that as well, okay? So here what you're seeing are 3 different levels. You're seeing the region because you've selected that already. You're also seeing by sector type. So that's why you see public HRI, you see public 2-year, public university. Again, this is all just for publics. So that's the second level. You can see it by the type. And the third level is that you can see it by just your institution. So that's where the keep or exclude function comes into play. And we do have an activity for that. So again, just to show you some of the things that work in this highlight table and in other views, is that this is the sort button, or not button, the sort icon. And then if you hover over the the text here, this tooltip comes up. You can do keep only, exclude. You can also sort by ascending or by descending. Okay, and it gives you the total, and it's adding all of these numbers. You'll see that it's double because it's adding these 4 columns plus this again. So that's why it's a little bit double. You see 5,266 here, but if you look at it as a total, you see 10,532. So just a little nuance there. And then you'll see the total for the different type, and you'll see the total for the region. So let me just put it in values, so maybe it's a little clearer. So for public HRIs, you see the total in this white row. Same thing for publics, and then for the entire region, this is the total. Okay, so we're going to use this dashboard for our next activity that's going to be led by the POCs. But let me show you a little bit about how to use it there. So I'm going to switch regions because we've been on Central Texas for a little bit.
Can I interrupt you for a second, Luis?
Go ahead.
Before you go into walking them through it, why don't you post up the questions so everybody can capture those and then come back and walk them through what we're asking them to do for the first several points?
Yep, that's a good idea. Okay, so let me bring it up here. Let me try and best to try and get you the whole question here.
So again, please capture this however works best for you with either a screenshot or take a picture of it so that you have the questions. And then Luis is going to walk you through the sorting based on the public completions, the region, the sector, and the institution completions.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll go into breakout to discuss the final 2 questions.
Yeah. Okay, give me a thumbs up when you're able to take a screenshot. Okay, give one a couple more seconds to do it. Thank you for letting me know, Teresa. Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, Mariel. Thank you, Mary Jo. All right, sounds like people might have the hang of this. So I'm going to show you a couple of things here because I do have specific information for the Metroplex and the Gulf Coast regions. Okay, so the first thing we wanted to have you do is sort this by region totals. And the way that you do that, you see total public completions and the icon. So Gulf Coast and Metroplex, just hang on for a second. What you'll see here is the sort. And you click on it, it'll start then sorting it by descending order. So we see 5,099 is the highest total, and that's for the white student population. Okay. For Metroplex and Gulf Coast, since you have a lot more institutions in your region, the way you're going to do it is not the way I'm showing everyone else, because this icon won't show up for you. What you're going to do is actually click on public total completions. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. No, you won't be able to do it this way. You'll have to rely on your eyes. Sorry about that. Since there are only 4 rows here, for you to be able to figure out which of the student populations was the highest in descending order for your region, okay? So here it's sorted for Southeast. Now, let's say, for example, you want to pick just your public type, because that's what we're going to sort it by. The way that we do that is we pick a type. In this case, I'll pick public 2-year, and we'll go to total here. And then the sort icon shows up for total. This sort icon is going to be just for the type. So it's already sorted there. Okay. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to want to sort it by just your institution from highest to lowest. And I'm just picking an institution here at random. What we're going to do is we're going to only keep your institution. Okay. So in this example, I'm going to choose Lamar University. I'm going to choose to keep only. And then once I choose Lamar University, that's the only data that will show up in the view. And then I can sort it here by total. Okay. One caveat I will add is because to keep track of all of this is to download the different views. Okay. So once you sort it by public, total public completions, download that view. Once you sort it by institution type, whether it's 2-year, HRI, or university, download that view. And once you sort it just by your university, go ahead and download that view. So you have all 3 views at your disposal to go ahead and answer the questions that are going to be led by your POC. Okay, so we did 2, 3, and 4. And with your POC, you're going to discuss, does the data indicate that opportunities to advance equity across your region, sector, or institutions exist? Explain. And does the data show consistent trends showing advanced equity across region, sector, and institution? And we want you to discuss that as well. Okay. Are there any questions on getting the data or the activity itself? Did I miss anything in the chat, Elizabeth, that you can?
Nope, I haven't seen any additional questions or comments. I will note that it seems like some people had some better luck with getting that public completions by race and ethnicity to load if they selected their region and institution before they clicked on the section.
Okay.
It seemed to load better, so.
All right, then I think we're ready to go to the breakout room.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start the breakout rooms. Y'all are gonna have about 8 minutes to discuss this, and I did reset the breakout room, so hopefully we get aligned to the correct rooms this time.
Hi, everyone. Go ahead and use the chat to share any key takeaways or any other piece of information you want to highlight from your conversation from the breakout room. Or if you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and share with the group.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I do know this time we were able to assign everyone to breakout rooms. So that was a plus. Hopefully you ended up with the proper region. So quickly, does anyone have any key insights they would like to share, or they like to type in a key takeaway from your group discussion into the chat? Oh, look at that. Sherry's already on top of it.
She's on it.
So it looks like for the RGV area, their key takeaways were that their demographics reflect their region. So the region-to-region comparison would be instructive and helpful to have. The other category is a major question for institution and takes extra care at institutions to integrate and get right. So it sounds like they would like to potentially see that comparison we talked about earlier, and maybe some unpacking of that other group to help them better understand what's happening in their region.
Okay.
Then we have a question, would it be helpful to add population demographics for comparison purposes? So that's an interesting idea. I know that we do population comparison in our projections that we do for enrollment, the enrollment forecast generally. So it looks like Metroplex had similar thoughts. Any other? Okay, West Texas also talked about how you can accurately tell so having base population numbers for comparison would be helpful in the West as well. So really thinking about how does your overall population compare to what you see happening with your completion students in the region, and if that's mirrored. Southeast saw opportunities to advance equity, but it differs for different institutions. Title V grants may help some institution consistent trends. High Plains thought that looking at the completions by percentage of the entire population was helpful.
Okay.
So
these are good to know.
Yeah, these are all great trends. Glad that people are able to get in and dig into the data. I think we're almost out of time, so let's transition over to sharing what data is available concerning direct enrollment for high school to higher ed, and go from there.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're still on texashighereddata.org. Go to overview, regional dashboards. And this time we're going back to 60 by 30 regional dashboards, okay? And I'm gonna switch the region here. Let's change it to South Texas. And we're gonna go to data enrollment. I'm sorry, direct enrollment. Put this in full screen. So a couple of things you're going to notice that look similar is this table with the big authoritative numbers. And we're looking at 2019 data in this particular table. And we're breaking it by those students who did not directly enroll into higher education, those who enrolled to the different types, okay? And in the left-hand column, you have it broken down by total number of high school grads. So there were 69,000 plus high school grads for the South Texas region in 2019. And for 2019, South Texas direct enrollment rate is 52.8%. So you'll see that in every region, you'll get that kind of information. What I want to show you here are a couple of different data points that you have. In the middle, we have a new type of chart that we haven't seen in the other views, and I want to show you how to use it. Under direct enrollment by ISD, South Texas, we have the years on the y-axis, and on the x-axis, we have the percentage of direct enrollment students into higher ed, okay? So you have from 0 to 100%, and in here, we're looking at a box and whiskers plot, okay? So we're looking at those who were in the first quartile up to this part here, and then in the second quartile, you see the gray part, okay? And in the third quartile, you see these other dots here, and those that are outliers, you see over here, or you see on this left-hand side. So what we're looking at in this box and whiskers plot, each dot represents an ISD that's just in that region. So these are the ISDs in the South Texas region. Additionally, these are the ISDs that passed the FERPA test for us. So any ISD that had fewer than 25 students in that particular, those particular years were hidden from this data because of FERPA reasons. Okay, so you're not going to find every ISD, and if you don't find it there, that's the reason why, because it's not FERPA compliant. Okay, so how do you use this box and whiskers plot then? Well, you can use it a couple of different ways. You can use your mouse to hover and discover to see, okay, well, what are the different ISDs here? You can do that by going through each dot. I can show you a much more efficient way to do this, and it's gonna go into a data activity for us. So the way that's much more efficient way to use this is that here where it says select a school district, this highlight school district, what that's going to do, it's going to dull out the other ISDs and only show in the bright color the ISD that you select. And again, the ISD is only for this region. So here's how you use it. You click on it and it becomes a drop-down list. So in this case, oh, let's pick, I don't know, let's pick Alamo Heights just because it's first, okay? So we can see that. And then you see all the other dots are dulled out. They're not as pinkish as only 5 dots here show out to be. So let's look at 2019. We see one dot that's a little pinker than the rest. So we click on it, and that's Alamo Heights ISD. So then the tooltip will show us what percentage of high school students directly enrolled into higher ed for this particular ISD, plus it'll give you the hard count. So as we can see here, 61.6% of students enrolled in higher education, and that translates into directly 217 students, okay? So now let me show you how you're going to use this data for your activity. What you're going to do is, you see all these other outliers here at 100%. For the moment, we're not going to focus on them. What we want to focus on, let's say 2019, we want to look at this dot here. So you put your mouse over it, and it'll show you which, let me just get out of full screen view. It'll show you which ISD it happens to be. What I want you to do is I want you to go to your region.
Actually, can I interrupt you for a minute, Luis? I'm
Yeah,
sorry. We're getting really close to the end of time on this, so I actually don't think we have time for the 2 data activities we had planned related to direct enrollment. So instead, why don't you just demonstrate like what we did plan to do in terms of selecting a specific ISD and comparing that. And then I would also invite anyone, if they have any specific questions about this view or about how it functions, to please feel free to either unmute yourself or to type them in the chat box.
Yeah. Okay, so let me show you what the day activity we want to show you. So again, I've identified that IDEA Public Schools had the second highest percentage of direct high school to higher ed enrollment. So now that I know that information, I can go to the highlight school district and look for IDEA. I can either scroll down or just start typing in IDEA. And here it narrows it down for me. So I just click on IDEA. Let me put this in full screen. And so we see that IDEA public high schools for the South Texas region seems to be consistently the second highest for each year for 2014, 15, all the way through 19. So then I can look a little bit closer at that data and see what that translates into total number of students. And so then I can compare IDEA or whichever school you came up with to not only who came out at 100%, but also who came out, in the bottom, and who else is in that range, or who else is in the second quartile, who's in the median, so on and so forth. What we wanted you to do with that by comparing the ISD that we selected with the different ranges is we wanted you to think about how might you be able to use this data to help inform collaboration from your regional ISDs. So how could you use this dashboard to bring in more ISDs into your convenings and conversations? So maybe you can share some best practices, or you can get some more insight into some of these particular numbers.
So we have a couple of questions. Is direct enrollment only enrolled in Texas or across US?
Mm-hmm. So that answer is we're only looking at students enrolled in Texas.
That's correct. So at this time that we're sort of limited to that. And then does the view only include ISDs in the region?
Yes.
Also, is it broken down into high school with ISD, within ISD?
We don't have it at the school level yet, or it is broken down by ISD. And again, I just want to emphasize that only the ISDs that met the FERPA test are included in here. So any ISD that has 25 or more students enrolling into higher education are included in here.
So otherwise they won't be included because of the small numbers.
Correct.
Go
ahead.
I was just going to say the question you were starting to read, does this take into account the privates?
Yes, it does. So if you look up here in the big authoritative numbers, you see that it does include independent in here.
All right, are there any other questions about the high school to higher ed enrollment tab? Okay. If not, then I want to thank Luis for his great work in leading us through the dashboards. I hope that everyone has found this instructive. We are going to post the recording. We will post an outline of the training, and you will have access to those questions. So if you're interested in looking at those last couple of activities and doing those on your own, then those will be available for you. Also, I want to point out that Ruby has made some excellent resources for us in relation to thinking about how to apply an equity lens to our data conversations. So she provided both some specific data examples related to the dashboards, a template that you can use to plug in your own data, using that equity language, as well as some guidance on sort of how we're moving in terms of talking about and thinking about the language we do and ensuring that it is equity minded. So all of those resources will be shared as well. So we will send a follow-up that has all the resources for you, so that you can look into those. And I really appreciate you sticking with us, and I hope that you have found this instructive. And I do have a brief survey for you all to complete, if you wouldn't mind just taking a couple of minutes and giving us your thoughts on how you think it went and what we could potentially do in the future to make sure that the training best fits your needs. So let me just pop that into the chat, and then I would ask that you just take a couple of minutes quickly for us and go ahead and give us your feedback. Okay, and with that, I'm gonna leave that up there for a few minutes so everybody can see it. And if you have any questions as you're continuing to go through the dashboards, please feel free to reach out to Luis or myself or Ruby about the dashboards, and we'll be happy to try to get you pointed in the right direction. Also, your POC is a great resource if you just have a quick question about data inclusion. So do we have any final thoughts or questions before we wrap up? I do also want to thank all the POCs for being part of this meeting today and helping us with the facilitation of the group discussions. And in case you didn't notice, Christine Hubbard put a plug in that they're having their fall leadership conference on September 18th via Zoom. So all regions are invited to hold breakout sessions for their groups as part of our event. The THECB will be doing a keynote, and we'll be following up with more information on Christine on who will be delivering that. So definitely looking forward to the Fall Leadership Conference.
Right, so anybody who's interested, just email me and we can do a breakout session for you, and that'll give you all an opportunity because I know everybody wants to meet at the beginning of the year.
All right, thank you everyone.